Okay, when we talk about voice disorders, we talk about four main characteristics that the person might demonstrate impairments in, and they may have impairments in one or multiple of these characteristics. The first thing that we talk about is someone with an impairment in pitch. An individual might have a pitch that's too high or too low, or perhaps not appropriate for their age and gender. Impairments of loudness. Individuals could be too loud or too soft. Impairments of voice quality might include the phonation that we're hearing is not what we expect to hear. Someone might have a hoarse voice, a breathy voice. Someone might have glottal fry. These are just a few of the descriptors that we use to talk about impairments of voice quality. Finally, impairments of resonance. A client might have too much or too little nasality of either sounds that are supposed to be nasal or sounds that are not supposed to be nasal. Briefly, I'd like to watch a couple of videos of individuals who have voice impairments and just touch on which characteristics were most marked during these samples.
This is my vocal malfunction. This is why I can't sing at the moment. Hopefully one day I'll recover. That is vocal cord nodules. That's from screaming. So singers, don't scream. It ruins your voice. Beautiful, isn't it?
Okay, think for just a minute about where you note, in listening to her sample, where you notice the greatest impairment. My initial impression was that her biggest impairment was in voice quality. When she started speaking and began singing, there was a lot of hoarseness to her voice. There was some glottal fry. There was not clear, true vocal fold movement like we would expect. As she kept singing, her voice quality improved, indicating that maybe under different conditions, her voice can actually function appropriately. Let's take a look at the next sample.
So I guess two of my first reviews is dystonia, where it must be. And I'm making this video to bring awareness to one type of dystonia, which is called spasmodic dysphonia. I have the abductor type.
Okay, she began to talk about her spasmodic dysphonia disorder, which we'll learn about later on in the course. But think for a moment the main impairment, or how you would characterize her voice. I would say that initially my thought was loudness. She had significantly reduced loudness. As I continued to listen to her, I also noticed some impairments in voice quality, including some pitch breaks, where her pitch was variable and broke from one pitch to the next. Let's take a look at the next sample.
Bobby and Bill play ball. Bobby is a baby boy. Bobby, Baby, and Bib. Papa plays baseball. Put the baby in the buggy. The puppy plays with a rope. Rope. Take Teddy to town. Get it ready.
Okay, listening to that, think for a moment where you would first, how you would characterize her voice disorder. My impression was that her voice disorder mainly was comprised of a disorder of resonance. We heard a lot of hypernasality. There was nasal air emission on all of those consonant sounds that were not supposed to be nasal. And you saw the consonant lists coming up there, and those sentences were specifically designed not to contain nasal sounds, n, and ing. But yet we heard a lot of nasal air emission. Let's watch the final video.
Hi, I'd just like to let everyone know that I have the laryngitis. I know I sound kind of funny. It's getting better. This is the fourth day that I've had it, and I'm here with the yesterday I think was the worst day because I this okay. And so I'm not gonna. I haven't made a video.
Okay, think about her voice for a moment. She said she had laryngitis, hopefully a temporary impairment. What was your first impression of her voice disorder? I would say first I went to pitch. Her pitch was way too high, and that was part of her voice quality deviation, is that in an effort to compensate for whatever swelling she had in her vocal folds or laryngitis, she was compensating by raising her pitch to achieve phonation. And when she lowered her pitch, she was actually aphonic or without phonation. Let's go on next and talk about pitch, loudness, voice quality, and resonance. Pitch is the perceptual correlate of frequency. It's measured in hertz, or the number of vocal fold cycles per second. When a tone goes from lower to higher, the vibrator, whether it be the larynx, a voice, a clarinet, increases the frequency, because elongating the vocal folds increases the tension and elasticity along the folds. Also, elongation reduces the mass of the vocal folds. Loudness is the perceptual correlate of amplitude, which is the amount of air molecule motion against the eardrum. It's measured in decibels, and it's influenced by breath pressure, vocal fold vibration, and the size shape of the resonating cavities. Loudness also affects listener perception of vocal quality, so it's important to look at loudness and the ability to control loudness during an evaluation. Voice quality is the perceptual correlate of the spectral characteristics and regularity of period, or the vocal vibration cycle. The voice is a complex sound. Almost all sounds we hear are complex. That means they have two or more tones at the same time. A pure tone would be like something you would hear from an audiometer, or if you had a tuning fork. The complex sound of the voice is influenced by the way the glottal pulse is released, as well as the modifications of that sound in the pharynx, mouth, and nose. Some of the terms that we've already talked about to describe vocal quality include hoarse, breathy, nasal, denasal, gravelly, or vocal glottal fry. Resonance is how the sound is shaped into a particular speech signal, or the modification of the sound in the larynx. It's influenced by how the sound passes through the upper vocal tract, If we have physical changes in our vocal tract, like a cold and our nose is very stuffed up, we might start sounding like this, and that's going to affect our resonance too. The vowels require the tongue to be in a specific position, and the nasal sounds resonate through the nose, oral sounds through the mouth. The articulators are the filter which shape sound into a particular speech signal.